you have to have a certain number of synapses to kind of keep things going. But it also tells you the actual pathophysiology starts many, many years before the symptoms. So it's really important for us to remember, just as people used to study diabetes, and then they said, wait a minute, there's a pre-diabetes, and then there's a pre-pre-diabetes where you have insulin resistance. It's the same with Alzheimer's. There are things going on early on that lead to a diagnosis way down the road. And it's been typically said it's at least 20 years from when you start the changes, and that's been shown with serial PET scans and with serial spinal fluid analysis, until you get to the point where you actually have a diagnosis. Now, the good news is there are new blood tests, and just as we all want to know our blood pressure, we all want to know our LDL particle number, things like that, our lipid panel, our LP little a, our ApoB. It behooves all of us to know our Alzheimer markers in our blood. So the first ones that have come out, p-tau 181 and A-beta 42:40 ratio. And these tell you whether there is ongoing activity in your brain. A lot of people say, I don't want to know because I don't want to know if I'm headed for it. Well, yeah, you do want to know because you want to do the very things that you've been talking about. You want to have a mild stimulation. You don't want to go crazy and stay up 3 nights in a row. That's not good for you. But you want to have some stimulation. You want to do all the right things. We have not had a single person yet who went on active prevention when they were asymptomatic and yet developed dementia. It may happen someday. We haven't seen it yet. The people who then go, so there are 4 stages you go through. One is asymptomatic. The second stage is SCI, subjective cognitive impairment. That lasts on average 10 years. So as you can see, you have a tremendous window of opportunity. It's just that people don't do anything about it at that point. So the SCI people, virtually 100% of these people get better when they go on the protocol that we developed. Then the third stage, and this is why, by the way, I tell everybody, if you're 40 years of age or over, please get a cognoscopy. Just as we know you should get a colonoscopy when you turn 50, get a cognoscopy if you're 40 or over. Find out where you stand. I mean, now you can include p-tau 181 and A-beta 42:40 ratio. Pretty soon we'll be able to include GFAP, which is even an earlier marker, not as specific for Alzheimer's, but it's an early marker. So if it's normal, you're in pretty good shape because it's such an early marker. It's a marker of astrocyte activation. So you want to do this. The third stage then is mild cognitive impairment. It's too bad they called it that because it's a horrible term. It's like telling someone, don't worry, you've only got mildly metastatic cancer. It's a relatively late stage of Alzheimer's disease, the third of 4 phases. Now, the good news, in our trial, 84% of those people still improved, even though they were relatively late. By definition, that means you're now starting to do poorly on cognitive testing, whereas SCI, you're still able to score in the normal range, but you know something's not quite right.
When you say improved, these people are actually having fewer symptoms or less degree of severity of the symptoms. They're not just slowing down the progression, they're actually reversing.
So glad you mentioned that, because the success with the drugs has been not to make people better or even keep them the same. It's to slow their decline a little bit, 27% for Leqembi. In our studies, we saw people actually improve and then they sustain their improvement. So what we're saying is these people actually do get better. Their MRIs got better. Their cognitive testing got better. Their symptoms got better. The judge from their partners, their spouses or their significant others, was that, yes, these people are definitely better. So in all ways, they were improved. And so then the fourth, if you don't do something about MCI, about 5 to 10% of those people each year will convert to the fourth and final stage, which is dementia, where now by definition, not only are you scoring poorly on cognitive tests, but you're having problems now with activities of daily living. Whereas with MCI, you can still do your activities of daily living. You can still drive, you can still balance your checkbook, you can still live. You're just not scoring as well on the cognitive testing.